help us make sense of it all, our investment pros. Jim Frischling is here, president of NewOak Capital. Hillary Kramer, CIO.
Right. Well, incredible. Only among the players that they're penalizing. But, you know, you take what happened. Which is three.
The top three.
You take that back to the States, and there's been plenty of people talking about this being a Fed fuel rally, credit standards, certainly leverage being, put into these markets. And again, I do think China kind of feels that the market, I think, performed 54% return last year, the Shanghai Composite Index, and they're trying to prevent what they think is really an overheating bubble because of the leverage. And I like to joke that, I learned from my economics professor, leverage is like alcohol. It makes good times better and bad times worse. And I think China's trying to pull back on this before things really do get out of control.
All right, so speaking of falling prices, oil, huge drop. In the past 6 months, it's down something like close to 60%. Where do we go from here?
I think actually we're going to go lower. And regrettably, I think we've been talking about Saudis and the pressure they're trying to put on the marginal players, or even now the players in the U.S.
Prince Alawid bin Talal said you're never going to see $100 oil again.
It is cheaper for them to produce than it is for the U.S., and they are putting pressure on us. I think we're going to go lower. We've been debating on the show whether it's the lower prices is good for the consumer or is it bad for the economy, and I think we're really at the point now where I'm in the camp of it. It's going to be, we are now below the point where it is bad for the economy. There are going to be job losses. A lot of the capex we've seen.
You say deflation, in other words, prices are going to keep going lower, and it's going to be hard to move higher.
And until the U.S. is going to have to pull back on its own production. I think so much capex, so much job growth, so much good job growth has been the result, particularly in Texas, has been the result of the boom in the U.S. oil production that I think we're going to feel it. So the positives, look, Europe's going to benefit because they're a natural importer of oil, but I think the U.S. is going to be on the negative side.
It's a supply demand.
There's GATS, there's Halo in the UK, so there are other players.
Uber is currently operating illegally in a number of countries, a number of states. I believe their valuation, their $40+ billion valuation, isn't warranted as a taxi service. It's warranted as a logistics company. So to a certain extent, not that they need my advice, but these guys better grow the freak up, okay? Because they got to.
That's why they hired David Plouffe, right, who ran the Obama campaign in 2008. I think that's where the 50,000 jobs promise to Europe is coming from, like just from a policy standpoint.
Absolutely, and logistics, delivery, business. Again, on the taxi side, I think they're going to meet some challenges. But again, I do think there's a lot of value to Matt's point. This company they're making it work, but they're going to have to quickly put in more safeguards and improve their image.
And they needed lobbyists. They needed lobbyists in D.C.
Jim, you like Apple, you like Google. You have said so on this show in the past. So which one do you like more with the payments process?
Well, Apple now has clearly leapfrogged and has taken the lead in this, although it's going to benefit the other players in this space. I question whether this type of pay system as a standalone is a business. I think what Google is doing is showing them as part of an ecosystem. Google is clearly a very popular company. It's on our phones. They have the Android system. I worry about both of these guys, Apple and Google, just being outdone by the banks directly, that we could use their own pay service. However, I do believe there's room in this market for more than Apple Pay. In fact, Apple Pay, I think, is clearing the way to have Google be more welcomed in this space. Yeah, and this company's in a very vulnerable position. That's why Google's going to get it. Let's say what appears to be on the cheap. Morale, I understand, is just dramatically down. They've been letting go of people. But the fact is, as Apple Pay becomes embraced, those who have the Android system are going to want something to use. And I think Google is positioning itself to at least reward their customers with that app.
It took them a while to get moving once they're a publicly traded company. Now realize they need to diversify a bit. They're almost a Google of 10 years ago, because Google realized they need to diversify. Facebook's doing the same thing. They're bringing on smart people. I'd much rather own Facebook stock today versus Google at any point.
I very much agree with Matt on that point. And also, I think about what they did with Instagram back in 2012. They paid $1 billion,
which everybody at the time said was crazy.
Them of overpaying, and by certain analysts' expectations, Instagram now is worth probably 12 to 14 times that number, and it's allowing them to keep customers, keep users that Facebook either wouldn't have lost or wouldn't have attracted. So their acquisition strategy, they're really using their stock value to their advantage.
I mean, the holy grail for them seems to be, we want to be your homepage, we want to be just that go-to spot.
So again, I think through acquisitions, I'm a big believer right now in what Facebook is doing.
Well, as far as this virtual reality, hotter and hotter, right? Facebook is not the only one investing, so that says something for surgeons. There's gaming usages. I mean, there's a lot of different applications.
Yeah, I think they went with less about the glass hole and more about the gaming, which I think has probably a little bit more applicability for the virtual. virtual reality. Also, I guess their internet access is a project that they're very passionate about, and they will benefit throughout, again, their system.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right?
Yes. So
all right, Jim.
I went with Home Depot. The housing market doesn't go away. Whether you like it or hate it, builders, fixer-uppers, people are going to spend money on housing. I thought of so many great companies that are going to be around here for the next 50 years, but Home Depot is my favorite.
All right. Well, that's fair as well. And I think Edward Snowden really put this out in the limelight as to what's private and what's public, but for the public safety. What's your take on this, Jim?
Again, I don't want to be the one to bet against Peter Thiel. I'll say that. That's first and foremost. Two is this company has a tremendous valuation at present. It's the third highest valued venture-backed private company out there at $15 billion. But again, I do think marrying technology and human capital certainly is something that I think all businesses are looking into, and this is very important.
It's the future, whether it's the government or whether it's business.
It's this great story with PayPal where there was something like $10 million per month getting skimmed off the top before PayPal even became legit. And Max Levchin, Peter Thiel's partner, basically figured it out, cracked the code, and then had this kind of 2-hour algorithmic live chess match going on, which is fantastic.
No, and that obviously was a resounding success. I think some of their acquisition strategies have been at least caught me off guard, including buying a social media company. Also, it seems like they're buying companies that already are owned by some of the founders, including Peter Thiel, I guess PopTip and Propeller. So again, I do see an incubation of companies, but some of them already owned, I guess, again by the principals.
Right.
Well, it's creating social unrest in many places as well.
It is, and I can't do it justice, but I almost feel like Louis C.K., the comedian, could do this better. Could do this topic better than us. He would say, of course we want higher wages. Of course we want to improve people's standards of living. But maybe if you raise people's wages, you're going to hit companies who are not growing their top line. Margins are being squeezed. Competition is fierce. And if their number one cost is labor, again, you can't raise wages. It will cost more jobs by just raising rates. So there are things we need to do. But again, closing tax loopholes, better public education. There's a lot of things we can do. But it's not just simply raising wages.
And not just giving money to the poor. People
$1.5 million, right, for 30 seconds. And CBS somewhat snarkily saying, oh, it's really not worth the money, but on the same day, essentially, that they inked the deal for Thursday night.
I completely agree with the importance of sports content to these networks. However, I do think about the oversaturation. I used to be a loyalist to Monday Night Football because it was that one evening game. Now there's Sunday night. Now there's Thursday night.
And again, college games.
Those are college games. And I do think while they're some of the top-rated shows every given week are the NFL games, I do think they're running the risk of being oversaturated. I don't know if they can keep making money, the networks, that is, paying these types of fees.
That lineup this year is terrible. There's a lot of really bad Thursday night games, and their ratings were fantastic. I think.
By the way, the Mets blowout, this would be the first time ever it's pick'em. If it stays this way, the Super Bowl has never been a pick'em between two teams. There's always been one team favored over the other. This hasn't happened before.
At least you have like a little East Coast, West Coast. I mean, that's happened before.
Like the gang wars back in the day.
Yeah, there we go. And Katy Perry.
Come on. Katy Perry.
That's why she went to you.
I'm not tuning in for Katy Perry, I'll tell you that.
They are plugging into the local.
The question I couldn't figure out who's doing the delivery. Like when you tap it, is it the actual liquor store? Is it like an Uber person?
They are plugging into the local stores and delivery networks. They are just a middle person to bring the local places to you. And actually, I will simply say it's going to cost local businesses money. I think it's a great gimmick. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think there'll be some funny videos we see of what happens, that whole campaign of right now. But I will tell you, I thought about Seamless Web. Seamless Web costs restaurants a lot of money because they charge about 15 to 17% of each tab. And whoever they're paying to deliver it is going to charge the retailer.
So as a restaurant owner,
yes.
Why do you participate in Seamless Web? Because it helps grow your brands?
Because there's certain customers we could not attract, or restaurants could not attract, if we weren't on this great website that basically brings these folks together. A lot of businesses use it, so if you're not on it, you will lose that. You'll lose that order. But if you get that order, you're paying 15 to 17% for it.
That's a great point. What do you think about the dollar?
I think the dollar is going to continue to strengthen because we are, the tallest of the midgets right now. And I want to give a better answer than ditto to Matt's comments, but I can't because I believe the European Central Bank's announcement on Thursday, I think the market is expecting a very big thing. Maybe not the shock and awe that the U.S. did with the Fed, but I think they're expecting a big number.
Well, even though the French president kind of announced it ahead of plan.
But Germany's not into this, and I think it's hard to get this done with one of the biggest players, probably the most fiscally sound player, not supporting this. So I think there's risk to disappointment in the announcement on Thursday. I would much rather see talk about closing tax loopholes, both for companies and individuals, and any kind of raising of taxes. To a certain extent, if we just actually implement the rules that are on the books today, that essentially would collect more revenues for the U.S. government without actually raising taxes. Just close the loopholes.
And we saw that a little bit already. That Shire deal fell apart, and in part that was because of the Obama administration.
Well, I agree. But again, I do agree the State of the Union is exciting. But again, Europe's under a lot of pressure. The Swiss National Bank lifting the cap.
Yeah, that was a surprise, right?
And there's still and it's still being dissected about how many other financial firms and hedge funds are in trouble because of it.
All right. Well, thank you all. Great conversation. Tamara, Heatha, Jim.
Thank you.
Our fancy stock guy. We didn't actually get a shot, did we, Matt?
Yeah, we got a shot.
Oh, they got a shot.
All right, we got a shot.